Okay.
Good morning. Are you ready to conceive, carry, and deliver a healthy baby? Do you know what it takes to get ready? And welcome to the next episode of Ready-to-Conceive podcast. And I'm your host, Duckworth. I'm a naturopath and a herbalist and nutritionist and other fantastic modalities that I bring together to help couples to get ready to conceive. Today, we've got a very, very special guest. It's Kat, and I would like Kat to introduce herself.
Thank you, first of all, for inviting me. And I'm really chuffed because what I really like about you is that you bring lots of things together, and that's what I like. I also started off as a herbalist, but I focus more on the movement side of things. But I know that in order to do something like conceive and fertility, you've got to have the whole lifestyle in action. You've got to have your diet. You've got to have your good lifestyle, your sleep and all that. But movement, and that's where I come in, is also a really important part of it. And I'm deliberately saying movement rather than exercise, because movement is a more general way. Exercise can be this idea that I've got to run for the bus, and that's not always appropriate if you want to conceive, but I talk about that a bit later. So,
well,
yeah.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And I am actually one of the things. Well, I've known Kat for a little bit. We have been working on a project together, and I have been amazed by some of the things that she was saying. That just like working with your jaw can work with your pelvis, and stuff like that. So, can you touch a bit more about that, the movement side of things?
Yes. So, the movement that I teach is somatic and Feldenkrais, and it's really about connections and awareness, and that helps our stimulates sensation and sensuality, but also it releases tension patterns. Mm-hmm. And obviously, when we focus on something like fertility or women's health, it's often about the pelvis and the pelvic floor. Most of us know about the reproductive organs, all that. And we often hold tension in this area that's not necessarily starting in that area. So when we're tense, a lot of us having stress actually express tension in our feet, in our hands, or in our jaws. So all these three are kind of strong. So, for example, if you clench your teeth, try and do it, just clench them. And maybe, can you feel how that kind of affects your anus a bit? And yeah, you clench your fists as well. Yeah, exactly. It affects also the shoulders, our posture, and it really goes into the pelvis. Try your toes as well, really clench your toes. Can you feel how that also goes straight into?
Yeah, that went straight to the anus. Yes.
Yes, I mean the toes are often more obvious than the jaw and the hands, but all of it are patterns of stress that we hold. And most of us are stressed anyway because life is hard. But if you're trying to conceive and you have a bit of fear of failure, a bit of, is it going to happen? Is it not? You are even more tense. And these patterns of tension really, as you just noticed, really affect our pelvis. And do you mind if I speak a little about the pelvis?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. That's what you're here for.
That's good. That's good. So when we hold tension in the pelvis, first of all, our pelvic floor is affected, and we need a strong pelvic floor when we hold the baby. But in order to have sex, to defecate, to empty our bladder, we also need a stretchy, malleable pelvic floor. Mm-hmm. So when the pelvic floor is tense, that's not strength, that's quite the opposite. So we find that if we are tense because of stress, sex is not so joyful, and of course we need to have a lot of sex when we want to have a baby, or at least many people have to have a lot of sex. So just being able to let go of tension can really help our pelvic floor. And the other thing is the pelvic floor is not just muscles, it's also connective tissue and fascia And the fascia doesn't stop at the pelvic floor. It surrounds the reproductive organs. It goes right up into our back. It actually connects the whole body. But for today, let's just talk about the reproductive organs a little. Now, I recently learned about the anatomy of lust. Have you come across this, Ina?
Not yet, but I'd love to know more.
Oh my goodness, it's just amazing. I've been working with this for so long, but the anatomy of lust, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So when we get aroused and really aroused, actually our organs move. So our vagina becomes a little longer. Yeah, isn't that amazing? Okay. And the end of the vagina, there's a little pouch that opens up where our semen can kind of go. And the uterus actually gets a little bit out of the way and goes from the lower pelvis into the upper pelvis. And that makes it penetration easier. And they also talk about that, that it just lets the cervix dip into this little pouch full of semen. It's kind of amazing, isn't it? It's a
yeah, so this idea that like people, I've just heard that somebody was suggesting or discussing that when you are working like with conception, trying to separate sex for pleasure.
Yeah, yes, it's interesting though, because we studies are not quite clear whether the orgasm is just for the sake of orgasm. There are even people that say, is an orgasm really important for becoming pregnant? And it's not. It used to be thought that we really need to have one, but it's not really necessary. But of course, when we have an orgasm, we feel closer to the person. Mm-hmm. We release oxytocin, that's intimacy. We release stress, and we know that stress is really one of the big things for not having proper ovulation. It really affects our fertility. You probably work with that a lot as well, don't you?
Yes, stress is one of the key probably aspects of that, and it takes a little bit of time to understand which stress is unavoidable and which stress can be reduced, and it's a matter of prioritization, and it's like a different topic. Like for some people, they have to make changes in their lifestyle, not just for conception, but because they're already so stressed that if somebody is under 40 and they take adaptogens as like on regular basis, I'm telling everyone, you have to change your lifestyle. You have to do something about it, because if you're under 40 and say you're taking Panax ginseng, which was considered to be and is considered to be the key sort of king of adaptogens, if you like, and if this is how you are managing your daily life, then something needs to change, because what's going to be next? Okay, you've exhausted sort of, you've already got a bank loan and overdraft in terms of energy. So what are you going to do next? So this is where things go into prioritization. But I'd like to come back to the a little bit more of the joy of sex, if you like. What's your thinking about that? How people can sort of in simple ways maybe work on having it more joyful sex when they're having the stress of like maybe something like, I don't know, pelvic exercises, or like just something about it.
Yes, so we in somatic work and slower work, so you really focus on the sensation and on it's actually mindful exercise. So I teach Feldenkrais, somatic movement. I also teach yoga and other things, but for fertility, I really, or for that joy of sex, I really think we want to be in the here and now. And when you're focusing on wanting to become pregnant, it's easy to go, oh my God, this is just in order to get pregnant. You're living in the future. You're not really connecting to the person you're with, to your partner. You lose that enjoyment of, and what then happens is you don't get that aroused. So for as I just said, for a woman, do we need orgasm? Well, we don't think it's vital for becoming pregnant, but of course it's vital for enjoying this often many times of sex that you're doing. For a man, on the other hand, and men benefit from this work as well, it's really their arousal actually increases semen. This is amazing. A man who is aroused, fully aroused, not just a little bit, you can have sex with that as well. Actually, I think double, or not quite doubles, but increases their semen by about 50%. And that's pretty great, isn't it? We know that they have to take quite a lot of herbs to get there.
But do you work with men as well for pelvic floor? Or...
Yeah, I do work with men as well. I think also people can join as a couple. That's also a possibility. So because pelvic movement, or the woman can teach the man some pelvic movement, because that movement of the pelvis is often, when we do a lot of sitting, even when we are, or when we're stressed, or we've been told, I'm also a Pilates instructor, and we often say neutral spine. That movement of the pelvis is not moving anymore, and we need that. Now, for the enjoyment, let me come back to the physical side as well. It's when we don't move the pelvis and when we hold tension, we also decrease circulation, and that's where your stuff comes in. So if you get your herbs or your nutrition, you want that nutrition to also go into and feed those reproductive organs. Nourish, that's it, nourish, yes. But if the circulation is stopped, the blood doesn't go there. So that does not mean, it means that the nutrients don't really get there, or get there much harder. It also decreases pleasure, because in order to have pleasure, in order to be aroused, we need the blood flow. And the other thing is, we then also, with tension, we stop lymphatic flow, and lymphatic flow is really the clearer, get rid of all the debris, get rid of bacteria. And I know you work with that a lot as well. So really being able to move our pelvis and be relaxed, rather than move it for the sake of moving and going, oh my God, with tension, that relaxation improves not just the joy of sex, but also improves physical, that bringing nutrients to that area.
I just was thinking, when you were saying that, like, maybe from your experience, what would you say is a good exercise? I know it's not quite but because you're so accomplished in Pilates and yoga, what do you think is sort of the best way to exercise for fertility? For example, at some point when I was much younger, it was suggested that you do this, the belly dance.
Great. That's a great one. Absolutely, because you get the pelvic moving. And if you do it with the sensuality of the movement, with the music, and you're really having fun with it, then it's a great way. So, I don't teach belly dance. I teach a kind of pelvic movement on the mat, or also standing, but absolutely belly dance is brilliant. Now, pelvis is not just pelvis, and in dance, you get this whole body movement. And that's the same in my work. So I also focus on posture, because do this, pull your shoulders forward and just sit. Can you feel again how that affects your pelvis?
Yeah. I'm 20 years older.
Yes, you're 20 years older. And it's often, when you're under that stress of, I need to conceive, and sex then doesn't become this fun, this like, hey, I want to do a belly dance. You go, oh my God, what if I fail again? That fear of failure, I don't know, is that what you find with your clients? Yeah, it's so big.
Well, people have got different reaction to it. And maybe that, like, for example, the trainings that you doing now, I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that. But what I found is that there are like A-type people who just they've never failed, if you like.
Interesting.
Yourself, like degree, uni, I don't know, work, like career ladder, like jet setting, you name it. And now there's like I can't, it just doesn't happen. And now they have to kind of relax, and relax is a very difficult concept for someone who's got the Oura ring to know their blood pressure and their heartbeat, and they count their steps with their Apple Watch and the calories and this and that and that and that. And it's like, I'm in charge, I'm in control. And this is something that is not quite done that way. Yes, you're in charge of what you do. Yes, you're in charge with what you eat, what you kind of how you do it. But still there is this element of, I don't know, I mean, let me call it some cosmic dance, if you like, because you really need to relax into that. And this way it gets difficult. And yeah, this is kind of, yes. So I'd like to come back to you and the work that you do.
Yeah, I so agree. I mean, of course, for some people, there's real structural problems.
Yeah.
So there's, we know, and we can still help with that relaxation, because there's still, even if you have structural problems, you need to allow yourself to relax, to enjoy life, and because when you're trying to achieve something, and you're trying to achieve something as a joint project, aren't you?
Oh, yes.
You are a partnership. And even if you decide to want to have that baby on your own, you have that partnership, and you don't want to feel angry with the other person. You want to feel connected to them, but you also don't want to feel angry at yourself. And you don't want to feel that, yes, as you said, you've achieved everything, and here is that thing that you cannot get. It's really about this, being compassionate with ourselves, being, knowing that you are not to blame for this. And it's sometimes difficult, because when people come to people like us and we say, your sleep has been bad, or you've oh my goodness, yes, you spend your life being an anorexic in your youth, but now you're okay. And it sometimes feels, when they come to us and we do the history and the past, and they go, oh my goodness, I've done everything wrong. And we have to say, you haven't. You've lived. You're now where you are. Can you be in that present moment? And you probably have this, like, people go to IVF and the first child just does not want to come, and they go to IVF, and then the stories are, the second child just comes by itself. Now their body hasn't changed, it's their mind, isn't it? It's
I think this is where, what I like about fertility work is the complexity of it.
Yes.
You cannot oversimplify it. I mean, I don't like oversimplification, I like the complexity of it. And I like the element of unknown, because there's always this element, will it happen or will it not? And I actually think it's beautiful, because it kind of makes us humans, if you like, that we are not there's some, don't want to go into that, but I do believe that children are given by God, and like whatever your form of your spiritual beliefs, this is something that it's not just that, it's not just mechanical. So so I wanted to say about that, the relaxation and the concept of relaxation. Do you have anything like where people can just start, like, okay, I can do it for 5 minutes a day to be just present in my pelvis, something like that? Like, okay, I'm just trying to understand. I'm on my very, very first step. This is the first podcast I've heard on the topic of maybe getting ready to conceive. And let me do something for 5 minutes that will give me this sensation of my pelvis. So what would you say?
I really like that. And just before I give you something there, it's such a nice concept. Absolutely. Being present, being with it, being non-judgmental. This is so important. And not just aiming for this future thing. I come back to what I said earlier, but being in that present moment and being central. And that's what somatic work like Feldenkrais offer. They offer this being with ourselves, whereas exercise can sometimes be, I need to achieve. Whereas that somatic way, and you can do all sorts of things. You can move with that awareness, gently rock your pelvis,
Mhm.
You can also breathe into your pelvis. You can just imagine that your breath is flowing down there. And just filling that bowl of the pelvis, and then letting the bowl of the pelvis empty as you breathe out. So that deep breathing. And just as you do that, it's sometimes very difficult when we're anxious to breathe.
Yeah.
If I could see that there's like that deepness that you get, but for many people. So I often start with a little gentle movement. So just let's do a bit of movement. So the deep breathing you can do if you feel you're ready for it, but you could also just imagine, either lying down or sitting, that your pelvis is a boat, right? It's this lovely boat, and the boat is on water, and you're just rocking a little bit on this water, forward and back maybe. And it's really a gentle breathe. It's that beautiful, you can imagine this beautiful water, sunny day. Yeah, yeah. And, you know, your boat rocks maybe a little sideways. Yeah, slowly. And really just feel that softness and feel that ease and the permission to be rocked by the water rather than you having to effort.
That feels really nice. I was doing that, there's some imagery sort of came through, which is from like Chinese knowledge, Chinese traditions. We call it the three cauldrons, if you like, the jiaos. They're called the middle, the bottom one, the middle, and the top. And the same actually exists in Celtic tradition. And so they've always been understanding this as a cauldron, as a ball, as if you like, that we are feeling with something.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful image as well. Absolutely. Yes.
And that the energy into that lower bowl, lower cauldron, depends which tradition you come from, is filled with the ancestral energy. Chinese call it Jing, and this energy is stored in the kidneys, which is like archetypal sort of organ, because you don't like call it's also kidney plus adrenals. But this is where the stress comes in. So if you're stressed, you have used up all your you're using up your ancestral energy. So you're borrowing from your future generations, if you like. This is coming back to the stress topic. So thank you for this movement. Being present in my body kind of triggered this part.
And it's really interesting because I love the filling. I love the filling with the breath. And for a lot of people, that's a beautiful image that works. And for some people, it can trigger anxiety.
Yes.
Because
yes,
of course we feel, yeah.
Exactly. But if it does trigger anxiety, this is where you need to go do this work.
Yes.
And, probably this is where you should do it with somebody helping you.
Yes. So then that kind of neutrality may be all right. It's really, it's so, you know, from your work, it's so complex. We have all these, that's where, you know, where we come in, because we listen to the person and we kind of go, is this working for you? No, it's not. Then we find something else that will, and that's where, you know, you go to somebody rather than doing it on your own. But it's worth trying it on your own as well.
It is. And it also gets you to the awareness. Like I have recently seen several professionals, like my colleagues, if you like, I've seen them for various ailments. And they were saying, I've got to this point and now I think I need help. So it's this awareness, creating this awareness in yourself that I need help, and then trying to get to what exactly I need help with, sort of, you know, and then even some people get to this point themselves, some people don't, but this is why we are here, you know, that's like.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the word awareness, because Feldenkrais, the moving part of Feldenkrais, is actually awareness through movement.
Tell me a little bit more about Feldenkrais. That sounds very German name, but
actually it's Israeli, so it's it's really a movement with, it's kind of mindful movement.
Okay.
And it's this really dipping into yourself, into your sensations, into what you sense and feel. And we often say in Feldenkrais, the smaller the movement, the more you can sense. And the more we can make it effort-free, without aiming for, aiming for something, the more actually it's beneficial, because we're switching off that part of our brain that goes, I must.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful, because apart from, improving your movement and your patterns and, your circulation, your lymph, I also would like to say, when we move and we stretch the tissues a little, although we don't say stretching in Feldenkrais, we can release gentle scar tissue, which people have often, and that affects fertility.
So, but that's two questions I've got. One question is about the scar tissue. The whole concept of bodybuilding is around, you create micro tears in the muscles, and then the muscles rebuild and grow bigger. But that's how bodybuilding works. And then you take the whatever supplements of your choice to kind of have built-in materials to repair these micro tears. But same concept works like in an opposite direction in the pelvic, if you like, because if you overstretch and you create this micro tears, overstretch, I don't mean overstretch, I mean like put a lot of pressure in some ways around this area, then you do the reverse, you create this micro scarring that are bent in the circulation. So that's kind of the concept.
Affecting circulation, affecting that movement, that free movement of the organs, affecting the kind of malleability of the pelvic floor, because we just said we don't want it tight, we don't want it like felt. So scar tissue is like the seam on your t-shirt, you can't pull it anymore. And I work a lot with digestion as well. It can affect your digestive health, but it also it reduces circulation. It can really affect a lot, and that can come from movement, yes, but it can also come from inflammatory conditions.
Yes.
So when we always have painful periods, there's often a little bit of inflammation going on, and again that creates micro scarring. So, and for some people it's so big that we are, even our gentle movement might not quite get there. But for some people, for many of us, we have it and we can actually resolve that.
Yeah, well, just to say that humans are very resilient. So just like for the listeners.
Yes.
And it's not that we're trying to scare you off, like by saying, you've got little scars, come and see me.
Exactly, yes.
We are saying that, first of all, like conception is a natural process, and the body has like allowed for amount of running away from the saber-toothed tigers and being in some adverse weather conditions, so that is all there. So but just being aware where you are, and like we're trying to show you what to look at, if you think if you have got painful periods and it's part of your, like, you consider it to be normal, if you like, that's something can be looked at. Or if you've got some digestive problems, that something should be looked at as well. But having said that, it doesn't stop you from trying. Really.
Oh yes, I feel terrible now. I'm kind of, now everybody who's ever had a painful period is going to go, oh my goodness, it's not.
I know. It's like sometimes, because we are, I'm so like we are so immersed in our disciplines that like I tell this story, and I wanted to move to the work that probably you do in another direction a bit. So like when I, like in the very beginning, I saw a couple and they showed me blood tests, and I saw something in the blood test that indicated that there might be this condition and stuff like that. And I was so happy that I said, oh, you've got this.
Yes, the amazing beauty of life is that you can have a load of things wrong with you and you can still have fertility.
But the point was that I was so happy that I found something I can help her with. But for her, it was like, oh.
Yes, yes. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's really difficult when you talk to a person that you're with, a patient or a client. It's kind of different, but talking to you, I'm like, oh yes, and do you know this? And it sounds like, oh my goodness, everything could be a potential problem. But that means, you know, it's life is a miracle, and you know, you can become pregnant as a miracle.
Oh yes,
with
absolutely.
lots of things wrong with you, and that's the beauty of it. Absolutely.
Yes. And you know what, I've taken a master class from a very accomplished and really profound specialist in fertility, and what she was saying, she's coined a term. It's called healing opportunity.
Nice.
Do is when we and I absolutely love this, because what we do in our work, either way, whichever specialist you go to, doesn't matter which specialist, each of us is looking for healing opportunities. We're looking at something and we say, as you in your work, you're saying, okay, it's a bit tense, you know, we could do a bit of relaxation. This is healing opportunity, because the body will heal from this work. One thing I wanted to come back to, if possible, when you were talking about Feldenkrais and talking about the slow movement, there was another sort of insight, if you like, coming from, again, Chinese understanding, which is when we're when do you know, people have got gallbladder pain and gallbladder colics, you know, and it's they're trying to kind of do too strong too quickly, so the body is out of balance between autonomic nervous system and sympathetic branch of nervous system and parasympathetic branch of nervous system. And instead of slow movement, slow paced movement of the sphincters, what happens is there's a tension build, and then there is and it moves through. So this is where I think is an analogy of what is happening. You know, this is something that's happening more visibly, and the same thing's happening at a less visible level, if you like. That's what I wanted to say. That
yeah, that's a really interesting one. I didn't know that, but yes, you're right. And in movement, yes, it allows a lot more things to happen and a lot more health, but what it also allows us to happen is sense ourselves again. Sense ourselves, because thinking of fertility, or when there's something wrong, we often lose that sense of who we are, and that we are allowed to have pleasure, and that we are and so being allowed to sense ourselves brings us back to who we are and our identity, because we are not, you know, we are a mum or a dad to be, but we are also that person that wants to be with our partner, and that wants to enjoy it, and to you know, I'm here, I'm here in that present moment, and I'm allowed to be in the present moment. And really, that's what we learn from babies, isn't it?
Yeah,
they're really in that moment, and they're just amazingly, and we really need that, especially when the stress builds up. This, as we talked earlier, the fear of failure, the anxiety, and I've noticed with people I work with, there's anger to the partner, and that's not because you're angry with that partner, but because you're so tense and anguished, but it can really affect relationships in such a way that we lose the sense of me, us. We love each other, and we want to create this because we are in love. We want to create this new being.
Yes, absolutely. The anger bit, again, coming back to gallbladder, I never explained why I took gallbladder as an example. It's because in Chinese understanding, liver and the gallbladder are attributed to element wood. And the element wood is all about growth. So the fertility, if you like, in Chinese understanding starts with liver, and, well, it starts everywhere, if you like. The kidneys are your ancestral energy, but the first kind of if you like, the push to grow starts from the wood. So this is where, again, the anger is as well, because they can't realize themselves, the growth they expect to happen, that the baby will appear, the new project, if you like, new baby will appear. It doesn't happen, and it creates a lot of anger. And this is, again, something to work with in various ways. You can choose a modality that you think will work for you. But the thing comes from there is this being in a present moment. Most of our lives, in our cultures, we're being taught to soldier through.
Yes.
Like a child says, oh, I've got a bit of a tummy ache. Oh, just go along, let's see what happens. It's not that we give them time to say, oh, we don't, like, I'm culpable just as everyone else. My kids are saying, oh, I've got a bit of a tummy ache. Well, the best I can offer is have a little, like, lie down, rub their tummy, gives them some chamomile as a herbalist, and it kind of settles. But really, this awareness you're talking about is something like that. Like, okay, if you're tense, why are you tense? Where is the tension coming from? And this exploratory work with yourself, like, I had another podcast with somebody where we were talking about honesty, like honesty with your partner, with yourself. Are you ready? What needs to happen to be ready? What is that what are the conditions that will help you to feel less tense? I think that's also very important. Because, like, yeah, if we can start thinking about it, we can work with that.
Yeah. And I also think tension stops desire, right?
Yes.
It really stops desire. It's like when you're tense, although some people, they might get that sexual urge because they need to, but it stops the real arousal and the desire. And it's really difficult when, it's really interesting, because I get people coming to me, and you probably have the same, and they go, okay, my doctor said, take a month off, have sex every day. And it's like, but I don't have the desire. I try. And so how can we reconnect to ourselves and that sensation of, can I find desire? And actually, it's interesting, because I've recently started a psychosexual counseling. And it's interesting. You can learn desire. I was like, wow, this is amazing. You can
give us the clue.
Well, oh my God, there's actually a few things. So I mean, there's lots to it. This is like, I'm giving talks about it before I even know much about it. So you remember, I just started.
You know what? We'll invite you again.
Yes, when I'm done, give me a word. But it's really interesting. So I was like, wow. So when we are just focused on this, I must, we don't do these lingering kisses, that gentle touch, that kind of. We focus on the end result. And again, that's the Feldenkrais thing. I'm tender with myself, but also we need that with that other person. So instead of going, oh God, it's that time again, I've got to have sex, I've just ovulated, oh my, what about those moments where you lock gaze, where you have that lingering kiss, where you have, that touch, that hugging, and you can permit yourself to go, it might not go further. Even if I want to conceive, it might not go further. And that permission of it is what it is, and we're in this moment, we'll probably make it go further, but it's not oh no, it's that time again, I have to perform. And it's fascinating, isn't it? It's for all of us. I mean, I'm menopausal. I'm like, wow, this is for menopause as well as for fertility.
For everyone, but it's just the focus of the lens, when
it's fascinating, isn't it? That moment of being tender and kind and enjoying pleasure. And it's really I mean, fertility is such a difficult topic where you have that, oh God, I need to, but also actually this is also important. I need that tenderness. I need that bonding. I need to be with myself, and that dance of the two, isn't it?
Yes, it is a dance of the two. But it's such an amazing, you know, it is an amazing kind of a field of work, if you like. It's very different from other fields of work, because there's always this kind of new babies. It's always this uplifting elation, if you like. There'll be a new baby type thing, because
yes, and it's so beautiful, because there is the future. So yes, I'm talking about being in the present moment, but of course you want that future, you want that, and it's, there's nothing wrong with that longing. That it's hormones as well as your mind, and you are also a parent inside of that role as a central partner, and that's really vital.
I think so.
I'm just sort of sidetracking now, because I remember you saying something earlier about this, all these different ways that we can achieve this. I personally, I think, lots of people become pregnant without any help. Even if you have problems, if you just allow yourself to relax, some people just achieve it, and it's amazing. Don't be forced into relaxation, because there's people who are stressed out of their heads and they still become pregnant. Don't put yourself that pressure of, I need to relax. That's not going to help. And the other thing I think is, I find fertility benefits from a whole life thing, a good diet, enough sleep, enough joyful exercise, not just running around, or because that can actually disturb our hormones, but going for a walk, as you said, dancing, cycling, having fun with your friends is so important, isn't it? You probably do that as well. Can you just, instead of go, darling, it's time to go, we need to do it, it's like, okay, we're out for pizza with our friends. That's important too.
Yes, this is all important, but it's also what we say in fertility, that you need about 3 months before conception, because the period that you'll have today has started in your body 3 months ago, and same as the semen. So, or not the period, the ovulation, let's be more specific. Ovulation and the semen, they have started in your body 3 months ago. And that's say that if you're sort of healthy, so reasonably healthy. So if you had a very stressful period 3 months ago, this ovulation might probably not be the best ovulation ever. So you need to give this time. And by saying time, for me, it's about mindset of creating space for this future life.
Yeah.
Because, everyone's different, everyone's life story is different. But what I notice more and more is that the babies demand the space. It's not, for many women, it's not going to be like, okay, I'll give birth, I'll start have somebody else looking after the baby, and I'll come back to my really, really busy life. It's kind of not happening at the end like this. So, and
you're right, that time also to prepare the body, because it's not just the egg and the sperm. There's that whole stuff that the womb has to have good lining, that all those things that are absolutely also vital, that are really important, and giving ourselves time to sense ourselves, and to even relaxation. I remember, I'm a yoga, Pilates, somatic teacher, and I should be able to relax. Now, when people say relax, I just tense up. I go, don't tell me to relax, right? It's like, it takes time, it takes that, and pleasure, sensuality. Actually, we, in our busy world, we need to relearn that, don't we?
We need to, because it feels like reading a book is like, almost feels like as a procrastination. But as we know now, procrastination is a time which we need to assimilate the experiences that we have had. And don't confuse procrastination with scrolling social media, because it's not the same. Like procrastination is more like literally staring at the clouds rather than consuming new information. from social media. So that's kind of thing as well. Yes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's that taking time to be with ourselves and to be with the other. I mean, the other thing that I just want to throw into this pot now, and I go back to my relationship stuff and about being with the other and enjoying ourselves. I work quite a lot with people, not necessarily postnatally, although but also years and years later, where because I do a lot of work with menopause, as you know, with intimate health, and the amount of time that anger from that process of fertility comes up in later life, if we didn't give it time and space and enjoy it, is just amazing. That it hangs on there. And through parenthood, people often forget because they've got their kid and it's lovely, but the kid goes out of the house, and you probably do the same because I know you also work with menopause. There can suddenly be this real uprising of, that has been hanging there for 20 years or something.
Thank you for saying that, because when people are focused on fertility, sometimes it feels like I'm happy to do it at any cost.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a cost, okay? And the as you say, whatever has been sort of misaligned during that process, emotionally, physically, hormonally, if you had to go through multiple IVF cycles and you didn't have like a gentle IVF and you were just thrown loads of hormones at, this all will bite you later. And now, well, when you are sort of trying to get a baby and you're in your 30s, say, or early 40s, you don't think about it. But then it's like, oh my God, I wish I'd known it then. I wish I'd done the work then. So what Kat is saying is really, really important, and bear it in mind that the better the process is, the smoother and the more kind of like energy is gone to in the right way, then
that's what I love about your work, because you don't just give nutrition or herbs. You work with the Chinese energies. You work with a lot of alignment work, and I think it doesn't matter how we get there, but that we stay with ourselves, that we stay with that, pleasure, enjoyment, the growing, it's very difficult. I know that. And it sounds like, oh my God, now they're telling me I have to do this as well. I don't, but it can be so helpful.
So it's a work of understanding your blueprint, what you are, who you are. Okay, this baby is not going to replace you. It's not like, do not substitute your kind of your personal aims and goals and everything you've got, like, so quite often it's just substituted with a baby. I'll have a baby, and then that's going to be like the answer to what I am. Yes, up to a point. Once you have a baby, you're a mother forever, and but it's still it's not completely who you are. Even if your life will be devoted to motherhood, and that will be it, you will still be this creative caregiver. You will still be this creative life force behind what's going on in your household. There's still you in that very process, and the older baby, well, my kids are 9 and 10 now, so I'm in my kind of in a new phase, because I'm like, when the kids between 0 and 7 years old, they live on your energy. So literally, like, my life was pretty much devoted to the kids, and now they needed me. I was doing lullabies until they were like the youngest, like, grew out of 7, and then they kind of developed their own interests. Not in the sense of they were not interested in their friends before, but I know they physically do not need me that much as they needed me 2 years ago. And this is where, like, but in my case, I know what I wanted and I did my pre-work. But this is where it starts, like, oh my God, what am I? What am I? This is where this feeling of, aimlessness comes in. If you didn't have this pre-work done before you started getting ready, this is also part of get ready to conceive, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think I mean, you give so much to your children because of who you are and all the other stuff you do as well. And it's this beautiful conversation where you can be friends with them, this beautiful friendship.
This is where now they want friendship.
Yes, yes.
Before that, they wanted care.
Yes, yes.
They want friendship. And this is where, like, they ask me about things that I'm doing, you know, they're interested in seeing how I prepare my herbs for my clients and patients. And so all of that, it's now like, but this is where this coming back to this, know who you are, know what you stand for. And this will take you through your life. And
even being a caregiver, even being a caregiver, you are, you know, I know this sounds kind of, this sounds like kind of really on that next kind of weirdness, but you know, when you've worked on that sensual body, that sensation of enjoying conception, and also, you know that the baby nibbling on, you know, taking milk from your breast, or you holding your baby, you sensing that weight in you because you allow, you have not switched off your sensory being. And so you don't just go, oh, I'm, you know, this, I'm like, oh my God, this feels amazing. This is so, I feel the baby feels me. It's such an important thing. I think that we don't switch off from our sensation. So again, somatic work, you know, there's also other things I do, like hormonal yoga. You can help with that, but that somatic work, that Feldenkrais, that sensing ourselves, to me, it underlies so many things, including that nourishing your babies and being there and
Well, I think we need to invite you again because we.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, and I'm just.
But that's amazing. I think in this last sort of chunk of the conversation we given people perspective. For somebody, I think if somebody thinks, oh, why is they rumbling about stuff that's not relevant for me? They're not talking about egg health or sperm count. Well, we're trying to give you perspective. So once you have this baby and what's going to happen next, it's like build your foundation now so that when it's all happening, you'll remember, oh, I remember she was saying that, like holding the baby and kind of all of that.
You know, we did say that at the beginning. I was saying arousal increases your sperm count. Reducing stress improves ovulation. So we know that there's other things that we wonder, does it make it easier for us to, you know, to actually conceive? We don't know things. Science changes. Does orgasm help you conceive? It used to be thought yes, then it was like we're not sure, and it's really difficult because we don't want to mislead people either.
No, we don't. But
I think often people in our world can say yes, this is the answer, and that's dangerous. We are helping to bring. We're working holistically, aren't we?
Yeah. And that's the point. Like, I am very, very, very wary about people when people are definitive, you know, because it's like this works for that person that might not work for you just because their circumstances are different, their stress is different, their readiness is different. And this is all kind of we're trying to take into consideration. Well, anything else you'd like to say as a wrap up for today?
No, but if anyone is curious, they can either approach you and get my details.
I'd like you to tell us more how you work. What do you do exactly?
So there
will be links under there will be links.
I can work online with people. I also you know, people can come to my studio, which is based in London, but I do a lot of online work.
Okay.
And and I work with individuals and couples.
Tell me, do you work as a one-off session, or people would need to devote a little bit of time? Because my work in fertility is 12 to 14 weeks minimum, because there's no point, honestly, there's literally no point. I cannot help you when you're busy, like last meeting of the day. That's not going to work. You need to dedicate.
I think if people really want to change, then a long-term commitment is best. But if somebody, like we've been working together for a while and we've been working on this project, I think sometimes my work slots into another project. You know, they might need a lot of nutritional support. They might need a lot of herbal support, and then the movement can be an adjunct. So I think we you know, we can work together. We talked about that the other day, but there's also a thing where people go, you know, my real problem, I really feel my real problem is the nutrition or the herbs or and I feel in that case, you don't need another bit of pressure on you. You're already having that pressure. So I'm totally open for people to just join and say, you know, I'm really curious about that pelvic movement. Can we work on that? So and then we can say yes or no.
So when people come to see you and you kind of do an assessment online, it's possible. And then you tell them, okay, this is the movement. How easy it is for them to take this movement, or how many times they would need to come back to kind of actually get the movement right, if there's such a word there.
Oh, I love that because it's such a wrong word, the word right in somatic work. Yes. And that's what makes it so beautiful, because it's about sensing. And some people are really, they very quickly sense. And some people find it really hard to sense and let go of preconceptions. And then it takes a little longer. And what's nice about the somatic work is you don't just sit there and go, you know, we did that exercise earlier, breathing, bowl. And for some people, it's like, I just don't get this. Whereas when you do a bit of movement, babies actually do that. They find out about themselves by moving. They push the floor away, and you can see this look, can't you? They push and they go, what's this? Oh my God. And then they look at their hands and they're like, ah. And so in a way, I know, I know it's so beautiful, isn't it? It's this awareness through this feeling ourselves. Look, the sun is shining in on me now. You probably can't see me, but
I can see you. Amazing. It's beautiful. Your hands are sunlit. It's so beautiful.
And they do, or they find their foot, and they have this look of kind of like, wow.
Where did they get to?
I know, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And in a way, we want to come to that point of going, wow, this is amazing. We have to relearn that, because we've switched that off, because we've learned to achieve and to be right. And the right in this is, I'm feeling again, I'm there. And then of course, you know, all the other stuff, the making that area more mobile again, releasing scar tissue, bringing more circulation to it.
And this is where herbs come in place a lot.
Yeah, herbs, but also movement, all that stuff. Okay. But often, so you know, I work with that same way. But I like actually if people do both. It's a double whammy, right?
Yeah.
It's a double whammy. It's a really yeah.
Well, anyway, so that's what you're saying. What I hear is it's very individual how many times people need to come back to you, but this would be advisable to do to help them get into this sensation. Because, like, for example, if you see that somebody's not actually kind of engaging with breathing, okay, you do this movement and then this movement and that movement, and overall, so it's like, what I hear is like, it's like a personal trainer, if you like, in a sense, where they show you how not to break your back if you're doing weightlifting.
I love that. A personal sensuality trainer. I like that. I think you've just termed a new term. I think this is going to take off.
That's okay, cool. So, Kat, the sensuality trainer.
Yes, I totally agree. Yes, and it is, and the work has to also be done on your own, as you know. So you could say, okay, I do this, and actually I play with this a little bit on my own or with my partner. You know, there's really, I feel when people try and become pregnant, there's so much pressure that I love to be a bit flexible with them.
Yeah. Well, yes, there's opportunity to be flexible, but like in my line of work, I need something to be in place. You know, we have looked into your test results. We've done some tests. We've looked into test results. We've identified healing opportunities, and then we need to see how you respond to these healing opportunities.
And in a way, it's the same. If they only did movement, then they would have to do that same. But, you know, I generally feel that people work on the other side as well. They go work with you. They have these other things that they are doing. So so, you know, if you only do one thing, you only do the movement, then yes, you have to be quite strong about it as well. But I do like people to have that other side as well, because nutrition is so important.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's what we eat is like pretty much like, you know, that's the building blocks of our body. But I think as well, in my opinion, such work changes a person, you know, it changes even if the like conception goals are achieved and, you know, they have a baby or not more than one baby. But after that, the work they've done will be like, they will want to carry on eating nice food. And like they will want to stay healthy. They will want to have this gentle movement and sensation. And this, I think, is such a great long-term value just of this work. You know, it's like,
It's interesting what you say as well, because I work also a lot with that kind of love your body concept. That's important for healthy sexuality, but also important for us, because, and that comes in quite a lot. So before pregnancy, you might have that flat stomach. Pregnancy, you have that beautiful bump. You're really, you know. But then after pregnancy, people often, they start going straight away to the gym to get that flat stomach back. And that's absolutely lethal, because you're building up potential problems of incontinence. This is really important.
Okay.
And so it's really important that you don't go straight back to running, to jumping. You do, I work a lot with the fascial pelvic floor health.
Okay.
And it's really, really, really vital that post-birth, you do the right work, because otherwise it's very quickly you can have problems. And what you're doing, that awareness with nutrition, with, you know, and what I do, that sensation, the awareness of the body, it can help you prevent problems later on. It's really important.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I hope that the people in beautiful souls will come and listen to this podcast when they have a baby.
We must end, because otherwise we can talk for weeks, can't we?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Kat, for coming today to this podcast. And I'm sure we'll invite you again whenever you want to, because it's so important and so interesting just listening to you. We will have all the details of Kat under this episode, and you're most welcome. Do subscribe to the podcast. I will be looking for really interesting and wonderful people to talk about this important topic. Thank you very much, Kat, and bye-bye for today.
Thank you.
Okay, stop recording.